After my son Elvis and his wife Ratha had their first baby, I gave them space. I knew new parents needed time to adjust, and I didn't want to be the kind of mom who hovered. But as weeks passed with barely a call or message, I started to worry. It wasn't like Elvis to completely go silent. I tried calling but got no answer. Something just didn't feel right. So one day, I grabbed my purse, got in a cab, and went to their place. I had no idea that what I'd find inside would haunt me for weeks. When I got to their door, it was unlocked. That alone made my heart race. I slowly pushed it open and was hit with a horrible smell. Something rotten, something dirty, something that made my stomach turn. I covered my nose and called out, "Elvis? Ratha?" But there was no answer. I walked into the living room, and it looked like a tornado had passed through. Clothes were everywhere, dishes piled up, garbage overflowing. But what really scared me was the sound of a baby crying, loud, sharp, and non-stop. I followed the noise, heart pounding, not knowing what I'd find. I stepped into what looked like the nursery, and there was Ratha, sitting on the floor with the baby in her arms. Her skin was pale, her hair looked unwashed, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. She looked up at me, eyes glassy and tired, and said in a broken voice, "Susie, this is Annalise." She handed me the baby, and I saw she was tiny, red-faced from crying, and clearly hungry. Ratha's arms were shaking. I took the baby gently and looked back at her. "Ratha, what's going on?" I asked, and her answer shook me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't know what else to do. I sat down beside her and listened as she told me how hard things had become. Elvis had lost his job and changed completely. He became distant, angry, and barely came home. Most nights she was alone with the baby. "He's like a different person," she said. "He leaves in the evening and comes back late. If he comes back at all." I asked her when she'd last eaten. She just shook her head and looked down. That was when I realized she was starving, not just for food, but for help. I stood up, holding the baby tightly, and told Ratha we were leaving. "You and the baby are coming with me," I said. She tried to argue, saying she didn't want to be a burden, but I wouldn't hear it. She could barely stand. I helped her get dressed, packed a small bag for the baby, and we left. In the cab, Ratha kept apologizing. She looked embarrassed, ashamed even, but I told her she had no reason to be. "You did the best you could with no help," I told her. "Now let me help you." And she finally nodded. When we got to my apartment, I gave Ratha a warm meal and a bed to sleep in. I fed baby Annalise a bottle, changed her diaper, and held her until she stopped crying. That night, I barely slept. I kept checking on both of them to make sure they were okay. The next morning, I called a doctor. Ratha was severely malnourished and exhausted. He said if I hadn't stepped in when I did, things could have gotten much worse. I bought groceries, diapers, medicine, everything they needed. But one question kept circling in my head. Where was Elvis? Over the next few days, Ratha slowly started getting stronger. Her face began to lose that pale, tired look, and she even smiled a little when Annalise giggled for the first time. She opened up more, too. She told me how Elvis had started drinking and blaming her for his job loss. "He said I ruined his life," she whispered one night. My heart broke. I raised Elvis on my own, away from his abusive father, and I thought I had done everything right. But it seemed like the past had found a way to repeat itself in the worst way. I knew I couldn't let it slide. I needed to talk to Elvis face to face. I called him, texted him, even left voicemails. No reply. Finally, 4 days later, he showed up at my door, looking rough and tired. "Where's Ratha?" he asked. I stood firm and told him she and the baby were safe, and that he needed to answer for what he had done. At first, He acted like everything was fine, like this was just a misunderstanding. But I didn't let him off the hook. You left your wife to rot in a house full of filth, I said. Why? He sat down, head in his hands. I didn't know what to do, he said. I felt like a failure. Every time the baby cried, it felt like I was being reminded that I couldn't provide for them. He said he had started drinking because it helped him feel numb. I told him being scared or stressed didn't excuse abandoning your family. You let her suffer alone, I said, and you let your daughter go hungry. For a moment, he looked like the little boy I once held in my arms, confused, scared, and ashamed. But I still didn't let him off easy. I told him if he wanted to make things right, he had to start with real change. Therapy, a job, support groups, whatever it takes, I said. But you don't get to see Ratha or Annalise until you show me you're serious. He didn't argue. Maybe deep down, he knew I was right. He left quietly. That night, I sat with Ratha and told her everything. She listened silently, then said, I don't want him back. Not yet, I agreed. Let him prove he's worth trusting again, I told her. You and the baby come first now. Weeks went by. Ratha grew stronger. She helped around the house, started smiling more, and began looking into online classes to build a future for herself. Annalise was growing too, chubby cheeks, happy squeals, and all. Our home, once quiet and lonely, was now full of life again. Then one day, the doorbell rang. It was Elvis, but he looked different this time. Clean, sober, nervous. Can I see her? He asked. I stepped outside and said, That depends. Are you really changing or just pretending? He told me he had started therapy, joined a local support group for men dealing with stress, and taken a part-time job. He handed me a notebook filled with session notes, job applications, and receipts for the baby supplies he had bought in advance. I'm not asking to move back in, he said. I just want to start being a father. I looked him in the eyes and said, 1 visit. Supervised. Then we'll see. That weekend, he came over to see Annalise for an hour. He held her like she was made of glass. He cried. So did I. After a few more visits, Ratha agreed to talk to him. They sat down at the kitchen table while I took the baby for a walk. Later, Ratha told me, I told him I'm not ready to forgive yet, but I'll give him a chance to show he's serious. From then on, Elvis came by every Sunday. He brought diapers, helped with feedings, and slowly started acting like a father. I still kept my guard up, but I could see the effort. Maybe people really could change, if they were willing to fight for it. Months later, Elvis rented a small apartment close by. He invited us for lunch, and Ratha agreed to go. The place was modest but clean. He had a crib set up in the corner and photos of Annalise on the wall. That night, Ratha told me, he's trying. I still don't know what the future holds, but for now, I'm okay with this step. I hugged her tightly and told her how proud I was. Not just for surviving, but for staying strong when it would have been easier to give up. Now, every week, we have dinner together, sometimes at my place, sometimes at his. Ratha and Elvis aren't rushing into anything. They're focused on co-parenting and keeping Annalise safe and happy. And me? I finally sleep at night, knowing that my granddaughter is cared for, that Ratha has her strength back, and that Elvis is facing his mistakes head-on. It's not a perfect story, but it's real. And sometimes that's the best kind there is. So yes, when I walked into my son's house that day, it smelled awful. But what I really found was something far deeper: neglect, pain, and silence. And from that silence, I found the strength to step in, speak up, and help rebuild what was broken. It wasn't easy. It still isn't. But if I hadn't walked through that door, I might have lost them all. Sometimes love means showing up when no one asks you to, when no one expects it, and especially when it's hardest. That's what saved us.